Roddy Piper's charisma was unmatched, and his controversies were unforgettable. He lived like tomorrow didn't matter, wild, fearless, and reckless with his own limits.
I'm not gonna make 65. Let's just face facts, guys.
But as fame consumed him, whispers of paranoia and betrayal began to surface. And when secrets about his final moments emerged, even those closest to him were left speechless. The rise and slow fall of a rowdy legend. In the pantheon of professional wrestling, few names resonate with the same intensity, the same raw, unbridled charisma, and the same unforgettable presence as Rowdy Roddy Piper. Born Roderick George Toombs on April 17, 1954, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, this man would go on to become not just a wrestler, but a cultural icon, a force of nature whose impact on the sport would echo through generations. But the story of Roddy Piper isn't just a tale of triumph and glory in the squared circle. It's a narrative that weaves through darkness and light, through struggle and success, ultimately culminating in a tragic end that shocked the world and left fans mourning the loss of one of wrestling's most authentic voices. To truly understand the magnitude of what Roddy Piper would become, we must first travel back to his origins, to a childhood that was anything but ordinary, anything but easy. Roddy was the son of Eileen Anderson, a woman of Scottish descent, and Stanley Baird Toombs, an officer in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. His father's career meant constant upheaval for the young Toombs family, with relocations becoming a regular part of their existence. They eventually found themselves settling in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where young Roddy would attend Windsor Park Collegiate. But settling down didn't mean settling into comfort. From the earliest days of his youth, Roddy displayed what could only be described as a rebellious streak, a fierce independence that was born from a tumultuous home life marked by strict discipline and frequent, heated arguments with his father. This wasn't just teenage angst or normal growing pains. This was a young man pushing against the constraints of a world that seemed determined to box him in, to control him, to suppress that wild spirit that burned within him. The rebellion reached its breaking point when Roddy was expelled from junior high school for carrying a switchblade, an incident that would prove to be a turning point in his young life. Rather than conform, rather than bend to authority, Roddy made the extraordinary decision to leave home as a teenager. Can you imagine that? A boy, barely into his teenage years, striking out on his own, choosing the uncertainty of the streets over the oppressive certainty of a home that had become unbearable. What followed was a period of profound hardship that would have broken lesser individuals. Roddy found himself living in youth hostels, experiencing homelessness in both Saskatoon and Winnipeg. These weren't just difficult times, they were formative experiences that would shape the man he would become, that would give him the toughness, the resilience, and the authenticity that would later define his wrestling persona. To survive, he took whatever odd jobs he could find, working as a bouncer, laboring as a ranch hand, doing whatever it took to put food in his belly and find a place to sleep at night. But amidst this struggle, there was something that gave Roddy solace, something that connected him to his roots and provided an outlet for expression: the bagpipes. He had picked up this skill at the tender age of 6, drawing from his Scottish heritage, and it would later become one of the most signature aspects of his wrestling persona.
My pipe band played me in.
Roddy wasn't just surviving on the streets, he was also proving himself as an accomplished amateur athlete. He claimed a Golden Gloves boxing championship, and more impressively, he earned a black belt in judo under the legendary trainer Gene LaBelle.
I was the 167 amateur wrestling champion, and I was the Golden Gloves champion, and I was starving.
His childhood friendship with future NHL player Cam Connor highlighted these early ties to the world of competitive sports, but it would be wrestling, professional wrestling, that would become his true escape, his true calling. The story of how Roddy Piper entered the world of professional wrestling reads almost like a legend. At around age 15, while staying in a youth hostel, a priest offered him $25 to wrestle a local promoter's midget wrestlers. This opportunistic start in Churchill, Manitoba, marked his first taste of the ring, and it was intoxicating. Here was a young man who had been fighting just to survive, suddenly finding a place where that fight, that aggression, that raw intensity could be channeled, could be celebrated, could earn him a living.
Coach offered me $25 to fight this guy named Larry Henning, man, and he was 320 pounds, and he had warts on his nose and his teeth and hair coming out of his teeth and ears, man. I have the shortest match in the history of the Winnipeg Arena. Lasted 10 seconds. I was 167 pounds.
But that devastating loss didn't deter him. If anything, it fueled his determination.
It only happened once, and then they put me in a car. I was sitting in the dressing room, and the promoter comes up, and he's under my eyes over here, my nose over here, and he says, "Kid, You did great. How'd you like to go to Kansas City? I swear. I said, is Larry Henning going to be there? That's the guy I just fought. 300 bucks. He said, no, we won't overmatch you. And they stuffed me in a car, man, and they put blankets over me, and they snuck me over the border into America.
Roddy's official professional wrestling debut came in 1973 at age 19 after training under legendary mentors like Gene LaBelle, Stu Hart, and Tony Condello in Canadian territories. Billed as a 6'2", 230-pound Scotsman from Glasgow, despite actually being Canadian, he adopted the ring name Roddy Piper after a ring announcer mangled Rod the Piper during an entrance accompanied by his beloved bagpipes. It was a name that would become synonymous with chaos, with controversy, with an unpredictability that kept audiences on the edge of their seats. His early professional gigs included jobbing, that is, losing matches to elevate established stars, in territories like the American Wrestling Association, AWA, NWA Central States, and Eastern Sports Association. He also had stints in Texas under promoters Paul Boesch and Fritz von Erich. But even in these early days, even when he was meant to be just another body for the stars to defeat, Roddy's natural charisma and brawling style began to shine through. There was something about him, something indefinable, something magnetic that audiences couldn't look away from. Piper's breakthrough came in the mid-1970s with NWA Hollywood Wrestling in California under the LaBelle brothers, where he became a top heel, that's wrestling parlance for a villain, known for his psychological warfare. And what psychological warfare it was. One infamous incident in San Francisco saw him play La Cucaracha instead of the Mexican national anthem before a match, deliberately insulting the Hispanic audience and sparking an actual riot. This wasn't just heat, this was nuclear heat, the kind of audience reaction that promoters dream about. This led to a heated feud with the legendary Guerrero family, Chavo Sr. and Gory, culminating in a hair versus mask match loss that forced him to wrestle as the Masked Canadian until he was eventually unmasked by Hector Guerrero. During this explosive run, he captured the NWA America's Heavyweight Championship. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw Roddy barnstorming through various territories, moving to Portland's Pacific Northwest Wrestling, where he teamed with Killer Tim Brooks and Rick Martel to win the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship and defeated Buddy Rose for the heavyweight title. In Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, he defeated Jack Briscoe for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship and, in a major milestone, defeated the legendary Ric Flair for the United States title, igniting a rivalry that would become the stuff of legend. His stint in Georgia Championship Wrestling saw feuds with Bob Armstrong, Dick Yai, Slater, and Tommy Rich. He even briefly turned babyface, which is wrestling's term for a hero, by rescuing announcer Gordon Soley from Don Morocco, but was ultimately fired for chronic tardiness. That moment was a hint, a pointer at the personal demons and struggles with structure that would Roddy him throughout his career. The icon and the industry. Returning to Jim Crockett Promotions, which would later become WCW in 1983, Roddy feuded with Sergeant Slaughter and won 3 NWA United States Heavyweight Championships. But it was one particular match that would have lasting, devastating consequences for Roddy's health. A brutal dog collar match with Greg Valentine at Starrcade 83 caused permanent 50-75% hearing loss in his left ear, an injury so significant that the event would be dubbed the Year of the Ear. This wasn't just a storyline injury. This was real permanent damage to his body, the first of many physical sacrifices Roddy would make in the name of entertaining the fans. But the true apex of Roddy Piper's career, the moment when he would transcend from wrestling star to cultural phenomenon, came in 1984. Piper joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, full-time, initially debuting as a manager for Dr. D. David Schultz and Paul Orndorff before transitioning to in-ring action. And it was here, in the WWF, that Roddy would create something that would revolutionize professional wrestling forever. His Piper's Pit interview segment became iconic, a platform where Roddy could showcase his unmatched verbal skills, his ability to work an audience into a frenzy with nothing more than words and attitude. This segment launched legendary feuds, including one with Jimmy Snuka that featured the now infamous moment when Roddy smashed a coconut on Snuka's head. He also ignited feuds with Bruno Sammartino and, most significantly, Hulk Hogan, creating the kind of compelling hero versus villain dynamic that would help launch the WWF into mainstream consciousness.
In the wrestling business, for 25 years, we couldn't stand each other. We were at each other's throats. I know it's predetermined all that, but he did not like me. And I did not like him, and that's just how it was.
The rivalry with Hogan peaked at The War to Settle the Score in 1985, a television special featuring Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper that drew record ratings. This success set the stage for something truly monumental. WrestleMania The One, where Piper managed Paul Orndorff in a main event loss to Hulk Hogan, and Mr. T WrestleMania would go on to become the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, and Roddy Piper was there at its inception, helping to create the foundation of what would become a global phenomenon. The WrestleMania appearances continued to define his career. At WrestleMania 2 in 1986, Roddy lost a boxing match to Mr. T. A 1987 steel cage loss to Adrian Adonis turned him babyface, leading to a hair versus hair victory over Adonis at WrestleMania 3. After a brief hiatus, he returned in 1989, feuding with Rick Rude, Bobby Heenan, and Bad News Brown, though a controversial blackface incident would mar their WrestleMania 6 bout, which ended in a double countout. Piper won the WWF Intercontinental Championship from the Mountie at Royal Rumble 1992, though he would drop it to Bret Hart at WrestleMania. Later career highlights included refereeing at WrestleMania X in 1994, winning King of the Ring against Jerry Lawler, serving as interim WWF president in 1996, and engaging in a memorable Hollywood backlot brawl with Goldust at WrestleMania 2. Interestingly, Roddy's relationship with the WWF, WWE was not without its complications. He was actually fired in 2003 after an HBO interview in which he criticized WWE's handling of wrestler health, a prescient concern that would prove tragically relevant in the years to come, both for the industry at large and for Roddy himself. Yet the bond between Piper and WWE was too strong to remain severed forever. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005 by his old rival and friend Ric Flair. He returned for sporadic matches, even winning the World Tag Team Championship with Flair in 2006. His final bout came against The Miz in 2011. Roddy continued to host revivals of Piper's Pit, interviewing new generation stars like Daniel Bryan and The Shield until 2015. In 1996, Roddy made a move that shocked the wrestling world. He jumped to World Championship Wrestling, WCW, debuting by insulting Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc and exposing WCW executive Eric Bischoff as an NWO member on Nitro. He defeated Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship at Starrcade 1996 via sleeper hold, though he lost it back soon after. As WCW commissioner in 1997, Roddy continued his feud with Hogan with a steel cage victory at Halloween Havoc and teamed with Randy Savage against Hogan and Bret Hart. He won his third United States Championship in 1999, losing it to Scott Hall. He also refereed key matches, including the controversial Bret Hart vs. Goldberg bout at Starrcade 1999. His WCW contract ended in 2000 amid creative frustrations, marking the end of an era in his wrestling career. Over his illustrious career, Piper amassed an impressive 34 championships and was renowned for his promos. That is, his ability to captivate audiences with his words was unmatched. He earned Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Feud of the Year in 1984 for his rivalry with Hogan and consistently received top rankings in the PWI 500. But Roddy Piper's impact extended far beyond the wrestling ring. He was a prolific actor, appearing in over 50 films and TV shows. His breakout role was as John Nada in John Carpenter's cult sci-fi classic They Live, where he delivered the legendary line, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick it, and I'm all out of bubblegum." This line has become one of the most quoted in film history, transcending the movie itself to become a part of popular culture. Other films in his extensive filmography included Hell Comes to Frogtown, Body Slam, No Contest, and his final role in The Masked Saint, which was released posthumously. Roddy also appeared in video games like Saints Row 4 and hosted the UK reality show Celebrity Wrestling. His connection to music included appearing in Cyndi Lauper's The Goonies Are Good Enough video and contributing a track on the Wrestling album.
I made a feature film with John Carpenter, and after that, then Sony Records, Tony Wolcott and his producer Stuart Coleman, great people, convinced me to do a single and an album.
Behind all the fame, all the championships, all the larger-than-life persona, Roddy Piper was a family man. He married Kitty Jo Dittrich in 1982, a union that lasted until his death, and together they had 4 children.
As Larry Henning, there's only 2 people. I'm not afraid of Larry anymore as my wife. She's 4'11 and a half and 100 pounds, and she's a poisonous dwarf. Let me tell you what she did one time.
For Roddy, wrestling life took its toll on family life. The family endured strains from Roddy's constant road schedule, which kept him away from home for months at a time. Even more disturbingly, they faced real-life threats from fans who couldn't separate Roddy's heel persona from reality. As Roddy moved further in his wrestling career, the realities of this profession began to emerge. He faced different oppositions and challenges, all of which led to his eventual demise. The sad end of a legend. In 2006, during a WWE storyline, Roddy was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a type of cancer that affects the lymphatic system. It was a very real, life-threatening diagnosis that forced Roddy to confront his own mortality. He underwent successful radiation therapy that concluded on January 15, 2007. For a time, it seemed that Roddy had beaten the odds once again, that he had survived another battle and had cheated death one more time. But cancer was just one of the demons Roddy was fighting. He openly discussed his struggles with depression, his battles with substance abuse during the 1990s, and his ongoing fight with hypertension, high blood pressure that he managed with medication. These weren't just medical conditions. They were the accumulated toll of a life lived on the edge, of years spent pushing his body beyond its limits, of the stress and pain that came with being Rowdy Roddy Piper.
He was really trying hard to, surrender and try to get his life straight. So, we would text every single day. Once we got older and, we basically had some conversations. And so we started talking a lot, and he started asking me about my spirituality.
In his final months, Roddy was clearly reflecting on his life, his legacy, and his relationships.
He really didn't connect, but he was very curious,
He was seeking something, perhaps redemption, perhaps peace, perhaps just understanding of a life that had been so extraordinarily lived, yet so extraordinarily difficult. And then came the prediction that, in hindsight, seems almost prophetic in its tragic accuracy.
Like my pension plan, I can't take out till I'm 65. I'm not gonna make 65. Let's just face facts, guys.
These words, spoken with Roddy's characteristic bluntness, his refusal to sugarcoat reality, would prove to be a heartbreakingly accurate assessment of his own fate. On July 31, 2015, at the age of 61, 4 years shy of the 65 he predicted he wouldn't reach, Roddy Piper died in his Hollywood, California home. The cause was cardiac arrest triggered by a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that had traveled to his lungs, occurring in the context of his long-standing hypertension. His last public appearance had been just a week earlier, on July 24, 2015, on The Rich Eisen Show, where he appeared confused. It was said that this was possibly an early sign of the fatal clot that was already forming in his system. Even more heartbreaking, he left a voicemail to a friend just hours before his death saying, "I'm in a lot of pain right now," words that would become his tragic final message. The wrestling world was devastated. Fans were shocked. The outpouring of grief was immediate and overwhelming. But perhaps one of the most moving tributes came from an unexpected place, from the man who had been Roddy's greatest rival, his fiercest opponent, his nemesis for over 2 decades, Hulk Hogan.
And all of a sudden, he passes away. And it was an A&E special about Roddy Piper. And the very thing, when they get ready to go to credits, it wasn't a text message, but it was a text message that was a voice message on the text. So he must have. But this text message came in 2 days after he died.
Think about that for a moment. 2 days after Roddy Piper had left this world, after his physical body had given out after decades of punishment.
And the text message goes, "I'm just loving you, my brother. I'm just walking with Jesus."
My son, I'm walking with Jesus today, my brother. Walking with Jesus, loving you and praying for you.
Walking with Jesus and loving you, my brother. I was like, he would have never said that when he was here.
A message arrived. This message, whether you believe it was scheduled before his death, whether you believe it was something more, represents something profound. It represents the transformation Roddy had undergone in his final days, his search for peace, his attempt to reconcile with those he had fought with, those he had battled against, those who, despite years of rivalry, had become family. Following his death, Roddy was cremated, and his ashes were interred at Crescent Grove Cemetery in Tigard, Oregon, a final resting place for a man who had spent his entire life in motion, traveling from territory to territory, from match to match, from one battle to the next. But death could not diminish Roddy Piper's legacy. If anything, it solidified it, crystallized it, made clear just how important he had been to the world of professional wrestling and to popular culture at large. He has been dubbed WWE's greatest villain and one of wrestling's best talkers. Roddy Piper revolutionized the interviewer role with Piper's Pit, helping to fuel the 1980s wrestling boom and WrestleMania's success. Even Ric Flair, himself a legend of the business, called Roddy the most gifted entertainer in the business. Hulk Hogan, despite their decades of rivalry, called him his best friend. These weren't just platitudes offered in the wake of death. These were genuine assessments of a man who had changed the business, who had elevated it, who had helped transform professional wrestling from regional entertainment into a global phenomenon. Roddy's influence continues to endure and inspire new generations. MMA star Ronda Rousey adopted the nickname Rowdy, with Piper's blessing before his death, carrying on the legacy of that rebellious spirit. WWE unveiled a bronze statue of Piper at WrestleMania Access 2019, a permanent tribute to a man who had helped build the empire that WrestleMania represents. His family worked to complete his unfinished autobiography, Rowdy, The Roddy Piper Story, which was finally published in 2023, giving fans a chance to hear Roddy's story in his own words, or as close as possible, to understand the man behind the character, the person beneath the persona. Inducted into the Halls of Fame, including the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005 and the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2003, Roddy's achievements have been recognized and celebrated by the industry he helped build. His rowdy spirit lives on in pop culture, from video games to documentaries like A&E's biography WWE Legends. The story of Roddy Piper is, in many ways, the story of professional wrestling itself, a tale of someone who came from nothing, who fought and clawed their way to the top, who entertained millions, who sacrificed their body and their health for the sake of the craft, and who ultimately paid the price that so many in the business have paid. It's a story of triumph and tragedy, of glory and pain, of a life lived authentically, without compromise, without apology. He was rowdy. He was rebellious. He was real. And while his life was cut tragically short, while his body gave out before his spirit did, while he never made it to that 65th birthday he predicted he wouldn't reach, the impact he made, the legacy he left, the inspiration he provided to countless wrestlers and fans will endure forever. Roddy Piper built his legacy on defiance. But when the line between his character and his real life disappeared, do you think he was still in control, or was he just another victim of his own creation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And for more videos like this, click on this next card on your screen.